Come along with me on a book research trip to Nantucket Island. If you're new here, hi, I'm Alison Haselden. I'm a film and TV actor, a writer of novels and screenplays, and a director, and I'm so happy you're here with me. After flying up to New England, we spent the afternoon in New Bedford checking out an antique store, a really cool arcade, and even got the boys some haircuts. So this day we were waiting for my mom to join us, so I was just with my fiance Michael and my brother Jake. The next morning we were up bright and early, and we got on the ferry from New Bedford to head on over to Nantucket Island. This ferry also stops in Martha's Vineyard, which is a little bit closer, but we took the longer trip to Nantucket. It was a beautiful boat ride and pretty fast. We had a few hours to kill before we could check into our Airbnb, so we strolled around town and had an incredible brunch at Lemon Press. This place really lives up to the hype, especially those wings and the breakfast sandwiches. Everything here was so delicious and the vibe was so cute. We also had to stop into some of the bookstores in downtown, and it was just such a peaceful, charming little area. We also saw this really cute little wishing wheel just outside of a church, and it was just everything is so charming. It really does live up to the hype. Now, the reason we came to Nantucket Island this summer was to research for the young adult fantasy book that I have been writing. So I started writing this book in November 2024, and I had just finished my first draft of the novel before we came on this trip. And I knew that since my book was set in Nantucket Island in the 90s, I needed to have my feet on the ground to get some hands-on experience and research all the little details that really bring a location to life. Even though my book is a fantasy novel, the human aspect of it is very much rooted in real life Nantucket, just with a little bit of a magical twist. So it was really incredible for me to take notes and do some research on the history of the island that I could apply to my book. Now, of course, we all love a mood board. This is my Pinterest board for my Nantucket Witches book. That is kind of like a working title, by the way. We're still kind of deciding where that's going to end up, but the vibes are very much like Practical Magic and Sabrina the Teenage Witch meets Fourth Wing, but more YA, and Harry Potter-esque adventures. So all of my playlists and my mood board, I think, really speak to that, and that is definitely the vibe that we're trying to capture here. I have been listening to this playlist non-stop for the past 6 months, and it really helps fuel me. The premise of the book is that there is a coven of witches who live among the humans on Nantucket Island. And so that was another element of this trip that I wanted to figure out is how could the witches hide in plain sight and or interact with the humans in a way that was positive without them knowing. So that's kind of my mindset going into this trip. To say, coming to Nantucket in pre-season, literally the week before everyone arrives to the island, was really good for me to actually get some work done because we had some rainy days. So on this day, it was kind of dreary, so I decided it was a perfect day to really sit down and get to work. We had just the most charming house, so I got up, read a little bit of The Hunger Games Sunrise on the Reaping book by Suzanne Collins, had a delicious breakfast before waking up my brain with a little bit of puzzling and some yoga. I am such a holistic kind of writer in the sense that I really do have to take care of my mind and my body and my spirit in order for my creativity to flow in a really healthy way. So moving my body in some way, meditating every morning really is a part of my practice. I can write in other ways, in unhealthy ways, but it's not really good for sustainability. I put on the cutest outfit. I'm obsessed with this little lobster sweater I got at TJ Maxx. Obviously I'm a Maximista. And I actually put on makeup and did my hair. Sometimes, when I am in dreary weather, I just have to get ready even though I'm not going anywhere. We did have a miraculous break in the weather though, so we did take a little drive down to one of the northernmost beaches that leads to a lighthouse, but we actually couldn't make it to the lighthouse because we found this entire group of seals just sunning themselves on the beach and swimming around, and we didn't want to disturb them. So we just sat for a while and watched them. And that was like a really incredible thing for me as a writer, especially because I did not realize that these seals were so common. So I will definitely be adding them into my book in some way, because they were just the most adorable little surprise. Later that afternoon, the rain came back on through, so I decided to swerve into the curve, get cozy, and make myself a cup of tea and a blueberry lemon scone. And I finished reading Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins, which, as a Suzanne Collins fan myself, I just adore her, and she can do no wrong in my eyes. And this book was devastatingly beautiful, as all of her books are, so it was a very satisfying way to end my day. One of my favorite days during this trip was our visit to the Nantucket Historical Society, where my mom and I were able to research our own family line. Part of our family is actually some of the original founders of Nantucket. We were part of the whaling industry as sailmakers, actually. So it was really cool getting to look through all of these old books. I mean, some of these letters were from the 1500s. I could not believe that they had preserved so much of this incredible material from history, and we got to learn so much about our family. So that was really cool. There's like so many cool thrift shops and things on Nantucket. So I love old stuff, guys, okay? And we made a new friend, so hi. Then we went over to the cemetery where we found the actual plot where our ancestors were buried, which was really cool. We got to say hi to all the family ghosts. And then we went to Crew for a nice fancy dinner to celebrate, and I had the best lobster roll in the entire world. This was my first time ever doing a research trip for one of my creative projects, and I have to say, it was really surprising how much of the productive time I had was just sitting around and really being present in the moment, in the place, and noticing all the little details around me, from how the terrain looked to what the food was like, to the name of streets, to the history of a place from decades to hundreds of years ago. A lot of it was just experiencing and being fully present, which was also so good for my mental health. I also didn't anticipate how giddy and excited I would be getting to see some of these locations that I wrote about in my story in real life. It almost felt like there was like a magical thread connecting me to my characters in a brand new way after walking in the places that they walked in my story. So what happens now? Well, this was the perfect transition from active writing into my editing process. So I'll be taking a few more weeks off and then heading back into edits, where I'm going to reread my story, take a bunch of notes, and start to work on some of the structural changes that need to happen for draft 2. Thanks so much for tagging along, and I'll catch you on the next one.